You ever look back at a completely average day and realize it was the moment your life started falling apart? That was me. 10 years of marriage, and I didn't see it coming. Not until something small, almost laughably small, flipped everything upside down. If you had asked me that morning how I felt about my life, I'd have told you I was content. Not ecstatic, not living the dream, but solid. That quiet kind of normal you stop noticing after a while. The alarm went off at 6:30. She hit snooze. I got up. Made coffee, half a scoop more than usual because I knew she liked it stronger. Toast popped while I packed her lunch. Turkey wrap, baby carrots, a little chocolate square, her favorite. It's ridiculous how you remember these tiny details when your world is about to fall apart. We always had this routine. Mornings were our rhythm. I'd bring her coffee in the shower. She'd hum while shaving her legs. I'd joke about it being a spa day. She'd roll her eyes. We were domestic pros, running on autopilot, like two people dancing a choreography they learned years ago and never forgot. After breakfast, I left for work. She kissed my cheek. That's what stuck with me later, the kiss. It was nothing. Not cold, not warm. Just there. Like brushing teeth. Like habit. And yet, in hindsight, that tiny kiss was the first crack. It was just another Thursday. I didn't know, at that point, that the universe was about to whisper in my ear, "Hey buddy, look closer." I got home around 6. Traffic was smooth. The air had that early spring bite to it. And I remember thinking maybe we should go out for dinner, somewhere casual, maybe that Thai place she liked. I walked in, dropped my keys in the bowl, and there it was. That one little thing. A receipt. On the counter. Nothing dramatic. Just a folded square of paper from a gas station. She's usually the queen of tidy. Junk mail goes in the bin. Receipts, if any, are in her purse. But this one was just sitting there. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I picked it up absent-mindedly while pulling off my jacket. $46.93. From a gas station in a town 90 minutes away. Odd. She told me she worked from home that day. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe she made a quick trip to see her mom. Maybe she just didn't mention it. But the timestamp, 1:17 p.m., and the fact that she didn't say a word about being out of town, that stuck. Like a splinter. Still, I didn't go full detective mode. Not yet. I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at that receipt like it had more to say. It's funny how the mind works. When things don't line up, even slightly, it starts flipping through memories like a photo album you didn't mean to open. What was she doing last weekend when she said she was running errands? Why did she suddenly start setting a lock screen on her phone? Why did she stop posting photos of us? Why did I stop noticing? I dropped the receipt back on the counter and grabbed a beer. My hand was steady, but my gut had already decided something wasn't right. I just didn't want to admit it yet. It wasn't a lipstick on the collar moment. It wasn't a text message or a hotel bill. It was a gas station receipt. That's it. And somehow, that stupid piece of paper became the first domino. Once the seed is planted, it grows fast. I told myself to forget the receipt. People forget to mention things. She probably had a reason. But the problem with suspicion is that it doesn't just sit quietly in your head. It starts rearranging everything you thought you knew. I went through the motions that night. We had dinner, pasta she reheated from the night before. We watched a couple episodes of a show we used to be into. She laughed in the right places. I nodded along like nothing was wrong. Like my stomach wasn't tying itself in knots. She went to bed early, said she had a headache. I stayed up, pretending to scroll my phone. But really, I was staring at the kitchen counter, right where that receipt had been. I thought about the way she'd been dressing lately. More effort. Not in a way that screamed I'm seeing someone, just intentional. Lip gloss on a Wednesday. That top I hadn't seen since we were dating. New perfume I never complimented her on because I didn't know it existed. I thought about her phone. She used to leave it around the house like it was no big deal. Now it was always face down. Always in her pocket. Always with her. And then the thing that hit me hardest, we didn't really talk anymore. Not deeply. Not the way we used to when we'd stay up late just figuring out life together. Somewhere along the line, our conversations became grocery lists and work complaints. I used to know her moods like my own. Now I couldn't tell if she was bored or angry or just gone. That night, lying in bed next to her, I stared at the ceiling and realized something I didn't want to say out loud. She was already somewhere else. And maybe, just maybe, with someone else. You ever feel like someone's pulling away, but they're doing it so quietly, so politely, you almost feel crazy for noticing? Yeah, that's where I was. Suspicion doesn't yell. It whispers. I didn't sleep much that night. By morning, I had made up my mind. I needed to know. Not speculate. Not imagine. No. Because whatever was going on, I couldn't keep pretending I was okay living in the dark. I'm not proud of it, but I started snooping. Nothing dramatic at first. Just observing. I checked the mileage on her car while she was in the shower. Noticed it didn't match up with where she said she went the day before. Pulled up our phone bill and saw a number that popped up way too often at odd hours, too. Middle of the day. Late at night. Sometimes during her so-called lunch breaks. I Googled it. Burned into my brain now. A local number. No name. Just a city, same one on that gas station receipt. That's when it clicked. This wasn't some innocent forgetfulness. It was a pattern. A routine. A second life hiding in plain sight. I remembered the old advice, if you're going to look for something, be ready to find it. And man, I wasn't ready. Not even close. But I kept digging. I checked her calendar, which used to be an open book. Now it was full of vague appointments. Meetings that didn't match her usual work stuff. One even listed yoga in a town an hour away. She's never done yoga. Hates it, actually. Said it was just organized stretching for people with too much money. So what was she really doing there? Everything I found pointed in one direction, but it still wasn't enough. I needed proof. Something undeniable. Something I couldn't gaslight myself out of. The kind of truth that slaps you in the face and leaves a mark. So here's where I crossed the line from suspicious husband to undercover agent. It started with a burner email. Nothing fancy, just enough to set up some tracking tools. I installed a free app on my old phone, tucked it behind the books in my home office, and synced it with her Google account. She had used my laptop to log into her stuff before browser saved everything. One click and I was in. I wasn't proud of it, but I was also done playing dumb. Within hours, I had access to her location history. A full map of where she'd been for the past several months. And guess what popped up like a blinking red light? That little town an hour and a half away, the one on the receipt. She'd been there twice a week, almost like clockwork. Mondays and Thursdays. For the last 3 months. Funny thing is, that's when she started staying late at work. Said she was helping with a new account. I even bought her flowers one day for working so hard. The irony of that hit me like a punch. Next, I checked her photos. Cloud storage is generous when you're not thinking about who's looking. Nothing too incriminating, but there was one image of a coffee cup on a hotel nightstand, and the name of the hotel was on the complimentary notepad next to it. I looked it up. That hotel was also in the same small town. I sat there, staring at the screen, wondering what hurt more, the idea that she was cheating, or the realization that she'd become so good at hiding it. I needed more. Not for revenge. Not even for leverage. I just needed confirmation that I wasn't losing my mind. So I made a plan. She had one of her long meetings scheduled for Thursday. Same day, same town. I told her I had to work late. She didn't ask questions. But I had already cleared the day. Booked a half day off. Gassed up the car. Charged my phone. Packed a camera, not for drama, just for truth. Thursday, I was going to follow her. Thursday came fast. I was up early, but not for work. I dressed casual, nothing flashy, hoodie, baseball cap, sunglasses. I looked like any other guy running errands, not like someone whose heart was sitting in his throat. She left around 10:30, same as usual. Hair done, dressed a little nicer than she used to for work meetings. Not flashy, just sharp. Like someone going to impress, not to present quarterly figures. I gave her a 15-minute head start, then followed. I know how this sounds. Creepy. Desperate. But when your instincts have been screaming at you for weeks, you stop caring about how it looks. You just want the truth. She drove west, took the highway out of town, just like her location data said she would. I stayed 2, sometimes 3 cars behind. Not exactly James Bond, but I was careful. She never noticed. About 90 minutes in, she pulled off at an exit. Not into an office park. Not a cafe. A hotel. One of those smaller places, not seedy, but not the kind you stay at for a corporate meeting, either. I parked across the street in a fast food lot, tucked behind a delivery truck, and watched. She sat in her car for a minute, then someone walked out from the lobby. A man. He looked regular. Nothing special. Sloppy posture, button-up shirt untucked, maybe mid-30s. They didn't kiss. No dramatic gestures. But she smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years, not since we were still new. The kind of smile you save for someone who makes your stomach flip. She got out, grabbed her tote, and walked toward him. He held the door open. They disappeared inside. That was it. I didn't need to see anything else. I didn't follow them to the room. I didn't try to catch them in the act. The act had already happened, and the hiding, the planning, the deception. Sex is just the finale. The betrayal starts way before that. I sat in my car for a long time. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. Just staring at that building like it could explain how we got here. And the crazy part? I didn't even cry. I just felt hollow. Like my marriage had quietly died months ago, and I was only now showing up to the funeral. I drove straight home after that. Didn't stop for food. Didn't call anyone. Didn't turn on the radio. Just silence, the kind that stretches for miles and makes your thoughts echo. I pulled into the driveway and just sat there with the engine running. The house looked the same. Still had our wreath on the door. Her garden gnome was still leaning to one side. Our little world, perfectly still, like it hadn't just crumbled underneath me. I went inside and dropped my keys in the bowl. Same place I dropped them 1,000 times before. Only now, it felt like I was walking into someone else's house. Like I didn't belong anymore. There was a note on the kitchen counter. She'd written it before she left that morning. Hope your day goes okay. Dinner's in the fridge. A smiley face at the end. That stupid little smiley face. I stared at it for a long time, like it was written in another language. Sweet. Casual. Completely detached from the fact that she was spending the day in a hotel with someone else. And here's the weirdest part. I felt guilty. Like I had done something wrong. Like I'd broken a rule by following her. Like I was the one hiding something. That's how twisted this gets. You catch them lying and cheating, and you still find a way to blame yourself. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I got boring. Maybe I stopped being the guy she fell for. Maybe I let us fade. But the truth is, I didn't walk out. I didn't lie. I didn't start sneaking around and leaving breadcrumbs for someone else to follow. She did. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. I wanted to scream. To punch a wall. To throw her stuff into trash bags and set them on fire. But I didn't. Instead, I did laundry. Cleaned the kitchen. Changed the sheets. I needed the illusion of control, something to do with my hands while my heart was falling apart. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan, wondering if she'd come home with his scent still on her. Wondering if she'd even pretend to care. And the worst part? I already knew I was going to act like I didn't know. At least for one more day. Because I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. If I did, that would make it real. She got home just after 8, wearing that same faint smile she always had after a long day. Kicked off her shoes by the door, asked if I had eaten. Told me she was exhausted. Said she might take a bath. And I just nodded. Because that's what I'd decided, to play dumb. At least for now. To watch her. To listen. To see how long she'd keep lying to my face. I wasn't ready for the big confrontation. Not because I was afraid of her reaction. But because once you open that door, you can't close it again. Once you say I know, your life splits in two, before and after. So I gave her the chance. The out. I asked her, casually, how her meeting went. She said it went fine. Nothing too exciting. That was it. No twitch. No hesitation. Just smooth, practiced deceit. She lied so easily, it made my skin crawl. Later that night, she scrolled her phone while we watched TV. I caught a glimpse of the lock screen. A new notification popped up, but she turned the screen off immediately. Reflex. Fast. Too fast. I could feel my jaw tighten. My hands itched to grab the phone, throw it across the room, and demand answers. But I didn't. Instead, I studied her. The way she leaned away from me on the couch. The way she answered my questions without really listening. She was still here, physically, but emotionally? She'd already moved on. She just hadn't packed yet. And that's when I realized something brutal. She wasn't going to confess. She wasn't going to cry or break down or apologize. She was going to ride this lie until it ran out of gas. Which meant the next move had to be mine. After that night, something in me shifted. The sadness started turning into something sharper. Not anger, exactly, more like clarity. A cold, focused kind of resolve. I stopped waiting for her to admit anything and started documenting everything. Quietly. Methodically. Like a man preparing for a storm that's already started. First thing I did was take pictures of the gas station receipt, of her schedule with those meetings, of her Google location history. I screenshotted text from our phone bill records. That number? Still calling her. Still texting. I even placed a cheap voice recorder in the glove box of her car. Just to see. I didn't expect much, maybe phone calls, maybe a conversation with someone that gave me a name, something. Within 2 days, I had my answer. She wasn't subtle. I heard her on the phone with him, laughing, joking, saying things like, "Thursday again," and "I missed last weekend, so I owe you." I sat there at my kitchen table, listening to my wife plan her next trip to his hotel room while I folded laundry and fought off the urge to throw up. She used to talk to me that way. Used to. I took the audio and saved it on a flash drive. Labeled it, "House Repairs." Hid it in my toolbox where she never looked. Then I opened a folder on my computer, password protected, and started storing everything. Screenshots, PDFs, maps, audio. I didn't know if I'd need it in court or for myself, or maybe just to remind me later that I wasn't crazy. Every little piece of proof felt like a brick I was stacking, not to build something, to tear something down. And as I gathered all of it, the feelings that once overwhelmed me, the confusion, the doubt, the heartbreak, started shrinking, replaced by something else. Control. This time, I was the one holding the cards. There's a line, invisible at first, that separates suspicion from certainty, pain from purpose. Once you cross it, you can't go back to pretending. For me, that line showed up 1 week later. It was a Saturday morning. She was in the kitchen making pancakes, humming a song she used to sing when we were younger. I was sipping coffee, pretending to read something on my phone, while that flash drive with the recordings sat in my back pocket like a loaded weapon. Everything looked normal. Sunny morning, cozy kitchen, the smell of breakfast. If someone had walked in, they'd think we were just another couple enjoying the weekend. Not a man sitting across from the woman who had been cheating on him, pretending not to know, and quietly preparing for the end. That morning, I got the final piece. While she showered, I checked her purse. I'd never done that before. Always felt wrong. But nothing about this felt right anymore. So I reached past the guilt and found what I was looking for. A hotel key card. It had the name of the place I'd followed her to. Not one of those digital plastic ones, an old-school, swipe-style card with a paper sleeve. Scribbled in the corner was a date. That same Thursday. The key was still in her purse, carelessly tucked next to her makeup pouch, like a souvenir. I held it in my hand and something in me went very still. I didn't feel sick. I didn't feel rage. I just felt done. That was the final straw. Not because it was the worst thing. I'd already heard her voice on the phone, already seen the lies stack up, but because it confirmed what I had refused to fully accept. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. You don't leave a hotel key in your purse by accident. You don't scribble the date on it unless you want to remember. Maybe part of her even wanted me to find it. Maybe she was too comfortable. Or maybe, like me, she was tired of pretending. I put it back exactly where I found it and walked out of the room. I stood in the garage for a while, next to the workbench I'd built with my own hands. That space was mine. No lies out there. Just tools, sawdust, and quiet. And that's when I knew I was done waiting, done gathering, done analyzing. I had everything I needed. The proof, the plan, the will. Now it was just a matter of timing. When people imagine betrayal, they picture screaming matches, dishes flying, dramatic ultimatums. But mine was quiet. Surgical, almost. I didn't want to blow it up. I wanted control, not chaos. I'd had enough of chaos just living inside my head the past few weeks. So I started setting the stage. First move, finances. I opened a separate bank account under my name only. Redirected my paycheck. Transferred small amounts from our joint savings every few days, nothing that would trigger suspicion. Just enough to build a cushion in case things got ugly. Second move, documentation. I met with a lawyer. Didn't even flinch when I said why I was there. He nodded like he'd heard the same story 100 times. Probably had. Told me what to expect, where I stood legally, what I'd need to collect. Good guy. Efficient. Unemotional, which, honestly, helped. I needed less emotion and more strategy. Third move, backup. I emailed everything to a private cloud folder, the audio recordings, the screenshots, the receipt photos, even a summary I wrote out by hand, explaining everything I knew. Just in case something happened. Not dramatic, just prepared. I even started taking things out of the house. Quietly. A few boxes of sentimental stuff to a friend's garage. Old photos, childhood keepsakes, a few tools I couldn't live without. I made it look like I was decluttering. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. And I played my part perfectly. I was kind. Present. I kissed her on the forehead, like always. Ate dinner at the table. Asked about her day. All while knowing what she was doing. Where she was going. Who she was texting the minute she stepped outside to get some air. She still didn't know I'd followed her. She still didn't know I had the recordings. And that gave me power. Not revenge. I wasn't looking to humiliate her. Just freedom. Peace. The ability to walk away clean, with my head high and my dignity intact. People say knowledge is power. But that's only true if you know how to use it. I didn't want a scene. I wanted an exit. So I picked a date. Our anniversary. 10 years. A full decade. It felt poetic. Let her think we're celebrating one last time. Let her toast to 10 years, not realizing the 11th would never come. 10 years to the day. It should have been a milestone, dinner reservations, maybe a card, a walk down memory lane. Instead, it felt like the last act of a long, slow play I didn't audition for. I woke up before her and just sat on the edge of the bed for a while, staring at the floor. No butterflies. No excitement. Just stillness. She stirred, mumbled something soft, and rolled over. No happy anniversary. No mention at all. That was my confirmation, not that I needed another. I made coffee anyway. Toasted the good bread. Even laid out a little card for her, like I used to do in the early years, when we still made an effort. Inside was just a simple note. Nothing poetic. Just this. 10 years. I always thought we'd make it further. But sometimes what breaks you isn't a single event. It's all the little things you let slide until you don't recognize the life you're living anymore. You made your choices. I made mine. This is goodbye. I didn't sign it. She'd know it was from me. She came downstairs a little after 8. Hair still damp, robe tied loose, scrolling her phone like it owed her something. I watched her read the card. Her fingers froze. The phone dropped a little. Her eyes skimmed the note once. Then again. She didn't say a word. She didn't ask what it meant. Didn't deny. Didn't chase. She just walked to the sink, poured herself a glass of water, and leaned on the counter like she was trying to figure out what version of herself to be next. I didn't wait. I grabbed my go bag, already packed the night before, and walked out the front door. I didn't slam it. I didn't look back. The sky was blue. Birds were out. It felt wrong that the world kept spinning. But it did. I got in my truck and drove to a small cabin I'd booked a few towns over. No one knew about it. No distractions. Just me, the quiet, and some space to breathe. I turned my phone off when I got there. Not airplane mode. Off. I didn't want messages. Not her, not family, not friends asking what happened. I didn't want explanations. I didn't want to be comforted. I just wanted silence, the kind that doesn't expect anything from you. That night, I sat on the porch with a cold beer and listened to the wind moving through the trees. It wasn't healing. It wasn't closure. But it was something. And in that moment, something strange happened. I felt relief. Not happiness. Not victory. Just the weight of pretending finally lifting. I wasn't her husband anymore. And honestly, I didn't miss it. Silence is loud when it finally shows up. The first few days at the cabin felt like I was detoxing. Not from her, but from the version of myself that had been holding on too tight. I kept expecting to wake up angry. Or bitter. Or broken. But mostly, I just felt empty. You spend so long trying to fix something, trying to make sense of the cracks, that when the whole thing finally collapses, all you can do is sit in the ruins and exhale. I checked my phone on day 4. 10 missed calls. 3 voicemails. A couple texts from her. Nothing dramatic, just that weird, vague tone people use when they know they've been caught, but don't want to admit it. One message stood out. We should talk when you're ready. Please. I didn't respond. What was there to talk about? The why? The how long? The it didn't mean anything? I already knew more than I ever wanted. Nothing she could say would change what I saw, or what I heard with my own ears. I didn't need closure. I needed distance. I did get one unexpected text from her sister. Just one sentence. I don't know what she was thinking. I'm sorry. Funny thing is, it meant more to me than anything my wife could have said. At least someone saw it for what it was. I stayed at the cabin for a week. No TV. No internet. Just time. Time to think, which honestly, I'd avoided for a while. I walked a lot. Chopped some firewood even though I didn't need it. Cooked the same 3 meals over and over. Slept when I wanted. Woke up without an alarm for the first time in years. I didn't cry. I expected I might, at some point. But no. The heartbreak had already burned itself out before I left. What was left behind was something quieter, grief, maybe, but not for her. For the life I thought we had. The memories that now felt tainted. The moments that used to mean something, now hollowed out by hindsight. When I finally drove back into town, I didn't go home. It didn't feel like home anymore. I stayed with a buddy for a few days, someone who'd been through his own divorce years ago. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a beer and said I could crash as long as I needed. That was enough. The funny thing about life after betrayal? It keeps going. Trash still gets picked up. Work emails still pile up. People still wave at you in the grocery store like nothing's changed. But you know. And the hard part is figuring out what to do with that knowledge, the version of yourself that came out the other side. I didn't have the answers yet. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid to ask the questions. There's a point after betrayal where you stand at a fork in the road, and no one's around to tell you which way to go. You've got two clear paths. One is bitter, scorched earth, revenge-fueled self-destruction. The other? Still bitter, let's not kid ourselves, but with a shot at rebuilding. Starting over. Maybe even healing. I stared at both for a while. It would have been easy to go down the angry route. Believe me, I had every reason to. I had the evidence, the leverage, the ability to ruin her reputation, dismantle the story she told people about who she was. But every time I thought about it, I came back to the same question. Then what? What happens after you torch someone else's life? Do you suddenly feel whole again? Does the betrayal sting less because you've made them hurt too? No. Pain doesn't transfer like that. It just multiplies. And I was tired of multiplying it. So I chose the other road. I called my lawyer and told him I wanted to proceed quietly. No drama. No social media posts. No revenge stunts. Just the cleanest, fastest path to freedom. He sounded surprised. Said most people want blood. I told him I just wanted peace. If that meant swallowing some pride to get it, so be it. Then I started taking care of myself for real, not the look fine on the outside kind of care. I started therapy. Wasn't sure I believed in it, but I figured talking to someone who didn't owe me anything couldn't hurt. It didn't fix me, but it gave me space to unpack the mess I'd been carrying around. To figure out what was mine and what was hers. Because the truth is, not every scar on our marriage came from her cheating. Some were from neglect. From routines that hardened into ruts. From years of being fine instead of honest. I'm not blaming myself for her choices. Let's be clear on that. But I also didn't want to drag old patterns into whatever came next. And yeah, I thought about dating. Briefly. But the idea of letting someone that close again? No thanks, not yet. I wasn't about to use someone as a distraction from my own rebuilding. That's not love. That's damage control. Instead, I got back into things I'd let go of. Picked up my guitar again. Started fixing things around the house I'd ignored. Took long drives with no destination. Just music and open road. People think the hardest part of betrayal is the moment you find out. It's not. The hardest part is deciding who you're going to be after. I decided I wasn't going to be a bitter man sitting in a bar 10 years from now, telling strangers about the woman who broke him. I was going to be the guy who got knocked down and built something better out of the wreckage. One choice at a time. There's no big finale here. No dramatic courtroom scene. No teary-eyed apology that tied everything up in a bow. Real life doesn't work like that. Most endings are quiet. They just stop showing up. We signed the papers a few weeks later. We sat across from each other in a beige office that smelled like cheap carpet and stale coffee. She wore a gray sweater I used to like. I wore a face I didn't recognize. We didn't say much. A few logistical questions. Some awkward glances. At one point, she asked if I was okay. I lied. Told her I was fine. She nodded. Didn't press. I think we both knew there was nothing left to say that hadn't already been felt in silence. That was the last time I saw her. No angry texts followed. No late night, I miss you messages. Just nothing. Like a door softly clicking shut behind you. And honestly, that was a gift. I moved into a smaller place. Not because I had to, I could have fought for the house, but because I needed a clean slate. Something without ghosts in the walls. Somewhere I could breathe. My days are simpler now. Wake up. Make strong coffee. Work with my hands. Read more. Talk less. I'm still getting used to the quiet. But there's a difference between lonely and peaceful. I'm learning that. The truth is, I don't know what comes next. I'm not rushing to fill the space she left. I'm just letting it be space for now. Letting myself grow into it. Slowly. Some days, I still catch myself glancing at my phone, half expecting a message that won't come. Other days, I forget her name for hours at a time. That feels like progress. I kept the note I wrote her, the one I left on our anniversary. Not out of sentimentality. Just as a reminder of the line I finally crossed. The moment I stopped being the guy who tolerated the slow unraveling of his own life. If you're reading this looking for a happy ending, I can't give you that. But I can give you an honest one. One where a man learned the difference between love and attachment, between loyalty and self-neglect. One where he didn't fall apart. He just quietly walked away from something that already had. And maybe, somewhere down the road, when I'm ready, I'll love again. With someone who doesn't make me question my worth in the dark. With someone who shows up, not just at the beginning, but all the way through. But for now, it's just me. And I'm still here. Still breathing. Still rebuilding. And finally, at peace.